Oh, yes, yes.
Just before we can pass the chairmanship over,
That was not Freudian at all, was it, Chris?
no, I need Councillor Story to read a declaration, and so I'll ask Councillor Story if she might do that now and sign it, and then she can resume the chair.
Thank you. I, Pamela Story, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interest of the Waikato region the powers, authorities, and duties vested in or imposed upon me as chairperson of the Waikato Regional Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
And Chairperson Story, the agenda is now yours to run.
Thank you, Chris. All right, we will now move on to the election of the deputy chair. Molly, did you need to add any further information, or is it a similar process?
Thank you and congratulations, Chair Story. So the process for electing the deputy chair position is the same as electing the chairperson. So essentially, the chair will call for nominations. Nominators will be given 10 minutes, everyone else 5 minutes, and then we'll get into voting. Voting will be the same as we carried out previously. So System A, which is essentially the preferential voting system, and if necessary, for a tied result, we will draw names out of a hat. Back to you.
Does the chair not have a casting vote?
Just to be clear, yes, for this particular decision, the chair does not have a casting vote. A tie is resolved by drawing a name out of a hat. Bye-bye.
Right, we will, nominations. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Bruce Clarkson.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Nicol. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Marr.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Mikhail Downard.
Do I have a second? Councillor Cookson.
Yeah, I'd second for Downard, Councillor Downard. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for the deputy chair? If not, we'll declare the nominations closed. So we'll move on to the voting. Division again. Want to? Dave, do you want? Oh, speak to it. Awesome. Oh, yes, there's that. All right, we'll go to Councillor Clarkson first. Would you like to say something?
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the opportunity, new chair. I enjoyed your speech. It was a visionary speech, and the main point I would make is I would hardly think there was anybody around the table that couldn't have identified with the key goals that you were putting in place there. I wanted to obviously make my case for you today. I'm hoping you all read the document that I circulated, all councillors, which had my track record outlined in it and my approaches to this type of role.
Councillor Clarkson, can I just get you to move a bit closer to the...
Even closer, yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm hoping you've seen that and had a good look at it and you can sense where I'm coming from. I'm interested in collaborations across the whole region. And I haven't just talked about it over the last 40 years. I've been actually doing it with community groups in particular, both community-led and hapu-led and iwi-led environmental projects occurring across the whole of our region, all the way from Coromandel down to Taupo. And what I've learned from that, of course, is that local knowledge is critical, always critical. And the grassroots approach, if you like, is the way that we can actually get stuff done. And often that is done with the support of councils, but often it's not done with the support of councils. And I think that's the key point I wanted to make, because I think as a region we could do way better. We could scale some of these responses up in a way that would make a significant difference to enhancing our environment. I believe I have a very strong understanding of the statutory framework that we operate in. I've been operating in that framework all of my career as an environmental scientist. And I've been heavily involved, for example, in submission making at every level of government, at national level, regional level, and in local government. And including the new framework that's coming towards us, the new framework of national policy statements, some of which will be somewhat modified before they're realised, others of which have already begun the process of being put into law. And I want to use that knowledge and experience not to delve into the technical detail and critique the council staff in the sense, but to institute some stronger governance around those things, about how we approach those things, and also how we make the connection national level with ministerial offices. So I'm currently operating in a couple of ministerial appointments, and I'm known to the senior staff in many of the major agencies that this council has to work with. I wanted to take a lead today and convince you that we had an amazing session yesterday. We started off well in the morning. We took a very collaborative approach to sharing information about each of our skills and experience. And then we were led on a journey by Dr. Finlay. And I would like to make the point that one way that we could demonstrate that we really can make that sort of approach to the way we do things would be to, rather than head into another division, actually come to an agreement, a consensus around the table about who the strongest candidate is to help that process. That would be not just talking about it as the way we were yesterday, but doing something about it. I'm extremely confident that I can work with Pamela. As I said, that vision that you just outlined is one that I think resonates around the table. And I also wanted to make the point that because I'm a newbie, while that may well be a disadvantage in some respects, I think it's actually a major advantage in coming in afresh and looking at the way this council operates. And that freshness, I think, can help in the sense that all of us have baggage in some form, but I don't have baggage relating to the way this council has operated up until now. And I want you to consider that, all of you, when you make your decision. I want to be the person that can help us focus on the huge workload ahead of us, the workload relating to a new LTP and the responses that we might continue to make in relation to some of the new statutory frameworks that are on the horizon, and making our case strongly at national level where we can see perverse outcomes, where we see things that aren't really best for the local environment, that we make our case strongly. So that's it really, in the sense that I want to do the best for the Waikato. Heart's in the Waikato. My effort has been in the Waikato for a very long time. And I just want to help in that process. So I'm just asking all councillors today to reflect on what Dr. Finlay said and see if we can't, on this occasion, come to an agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clarkson. We'll now go to Councillor Downard.
Thank you, Councillor Breeson and Chairman. Right, so I'm new. Why I've stood is probably why I've stood all my life in different committees and councils and stuff like that. Left home when I was 14, left school when I was 15, turned to work because that's all I knew, pretty much on my own. Became a workaholic to a certain extent. Moved from Taipi to Taupo, where I met my wife, who I've been married for 30 years. And had 5 wonderful children, 3 girls and 2 boys, and made that my home. I was adopted, so I always went on the theory that everything I stood for was for who I was, myself, because I didn't know any different. And it wasn't until, because I was adopted, and it wasn't until that I found who my whānau was, which I have Scottish, Maori, Tongan, Samoan, and Irish in me. That wasn't until I was 35. So my principles of life was still to stand on for who I was. I didn't stand on any other platform. In that time, I got involved with my community. I've been on many, many boards, trusts. Was chairman of primary school board of trustees for 15 years. Was chairman on secondary school, Tahara College, for 6 years. Was chairman of St John's Ambulance Committee for 7 years. I've been councillor for 6 years and deputy mayor for 3 years. Been on the Wairoa Trust for 10 years. I've been on the Sports Advisory, chairman of the Sports Advisory Council for 14 years. Chairman of the Funding Committee. So I've just been a person that's put myself in different challenges and strive to learn more, to push myself to places, I'll get a bit emotional, places that I feel that I could never reach. So I feel this role to be deputy chair to our chairperson would be an honour, and I'd give it 100% like everything else I've given.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Right, we'll now go to Councillor Smith as the mover.
Questions
Oh,
for you?
no, this is if you wanted to make a statement.
I thought we did questions, so if you don't mind, Madam Chair, can we do it that way? Or
Do
you're
you-
insisting? I'm happy to make a
No,
statement.
I was going to the mover and the seconder for each of the nominations to make a statement in support of their motion, and then was going to go to other councillors for any questions or comments after that.
Well, just thank you.
That's all right.
I would like to speak in support of Bruce. I had heard of Bruce before I met him, and he and I met a couple of 3 months ago on a project that I have been engaged with for several years with a landowner family who wished to donate their farm to the Waikato District Council as a Aboriginal park. And Bruce was invited by our then mayor to join me and go out and have a look at it again. I spent the afternoon with Bruce, and in general conversation, I got to know a little bit more about him and what he stands for, his background. And he's articulated that today in his vision, and I don't really think I need to add, but I truly believe he is a man that could do this job admirably and would be a great support to the chair and also a go-between between all of us. So, yeah, happy with that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And just a reminder to councillors, because there are people listening online, if we can get really close to the microphone, that would be helpful for those who are listening online. We'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Nicol.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So I second Councillor Bruce Clarkson as a deputy chair nomination in the sense, So one of the things that went into my thinking with that is I had a good ring around last night. I didn't get around to everyone and my battery did die, but in the phone. But I heard there was quite a lot of respect out there so far from people who hadn't known Bruce before and have given some, with the limited amount of time we've had available, I thought that that would be a good suggestion in this eventuality. And so I don't probably need to reiterate a whole lot of what Bruce has already said, whether that was in paper he prepared for us to have a look at before or even just now, but it's obvious that he has some really great connections in central government, which is I know also a lot of people have voiced their aspirations that they'd like to have influence in. So I think that counts very highly. And yeah, I guess I'll briefly mention as well, Mike, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation so far. I don't know you as well yet. I once studied at the university under Bruce actually, so known his background for a lot longer than with yourself. But yeah, I'd just ask everyone to have a consideration for what they want today from this next vote. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. We'll now go to Councillor Marr.
Thank you. Yeah, I give my support to Mike today. Again, a bit along the lines of why I gave Pamela my support. It's basically, from my point of view, that I've come into this space out of communities and that sort of thing, and Mike's situation resonated with me really well. Some very similar backgrounds, both sat on a lot of committees and boards and stuff like that in our communities. And I believe our views align really, really well. And it's something that I believe that was the reason why our communities actually put us into this position. So, yeah, Mike's experience along those lines with those committees and that sort of thing been really important to me. Bruce, unfortunately, we haven't had too many conversations. So that's probably a bit of a little swing thing for me. And along that governance thing, to be involved and actually get people talking to you early on in the piece, to me is quite important as you move into a governance role. Also, I find Mike someone that, along, as I've mentioned earlier with me, is someone that's a little bit more visionary and a little bit more looking outside the box and looking to sort of break with a bit of this process, or not be so restricted by it. So that's what I've based my nomination on. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cookson.
Yeah, on my support with Mike, much the same as everything Warren said, I agree with, but his past history of where he's come from to get here really resonates with me, that anyone can get to the table and anyone can get to the top. And for me, that is something that as New Zealanders, we've got to be proud of, that it doesn't matter who we are or what we are, we can all contribute and make the same ability to help our communities as individuals. And I think that's really important, that all of us should strive to get to that. And that's why I give my support to Mike after Warren covered everything I wanted to say anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. All right. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Mahuta.
Just questions, having been the deputy here twice, I got to ask you, because the relative, one on availability, because you don't have time to plan. You must be available because the chair's role will take them away from time to time. So just want to know your availability and accessibility as deputy. The other one was in and around the joint management agreements, because often the deputy chair was left holding those forums. So just again, what experience or indication can you show me of your skills in that area, because they're often left to deputy chairs, those particular set of arrangements. So availability and JMAs.
Councillor Clarkson.
Yeah, thank you for those questions, Tipper. Availability, I have made contractual arrangements, revised my contractual arrangements with the University of Waikato to make it possible that I can fulfill any commitment that people put in front of me. So I'm freely available no matter when and where. Second of all, in terms of the joint management agreements, in terms of interaction with iwi and hapu, two of my areas of experience are in the National Science Challenges, where I've been involved in co-governance. And when I say co-governance, actually involved in helping set up the co-governance of Building Better Homes, Towns and Cities, which is the major research program informing the current housing crisis. And what I've learned from that is the need to have those appropriate linkages and connections in order to come up with durable solutions that work for the treaty partners, all partners. And so I'm firmly in that situation. I have an interest in that area. I've actually worked directly with environmental projects led by hapu and iwi. Probably the most notable close by one would be the involvement in the Manga Ornua gully restoration here in Karakia Hamilton, and the Ngāti Hoa Mahi Trust and that amazing opportunity that they've created in terms of nurseries to grow indigenous plants, but more importantly, to provide meaningful work for rangatahi. And I've interacted also with the people of Pecuniary, river care and all that stuff. And so this is a strong area of interest for me. And so if I was left holding that baby, if you like, I would welcome it.
Yeah, so I'm green when it comes to JMAs, apart from experience that I've had with the local council. I like to think that I've got a very good mana with the Tūwharetua people and, Taupo and Rotorua area. As I say, I've been involved in lots of stuff and still am down there. And I'm also 100% committed to Waikato Regional Council and approachable anytime. So I'm keen to be totally involved in the JMAs, something that, again, I'm passionate about. So yeah, that's what I can say, and I'm keen to learn.
Are there any other questions from councillors or?
Sure.
We can go to
I'm just
comments.
mindful I asked questions before of the chairs, and I thought I'd just repeat the same ones since they might sometimes be in the chair position. The first one was around, I suppose I see the deputy chair role as a role that would hopefully support the chair really well with keeping a bit of a roaming watch of what's the mood out there, kind of in a 2IC kind of position. And so if that role with having a bit more capacity time-wise perhaps is able to do that, is it able to pick up on discontent and maybe help resolve that? So that comes to my first question around what you would, what your approach would be to help resolve things before they might lead to a code of conduct. And my second question was about any views on regards to the casting vote, just for consistency. Yeah. Go Bruce and then.
Yeah, so code of conduct, I've had experience in that space, been a manager of people for more than 20 years. And really it's about that first conversation, giving people an opportunity to have the first conversation, often in a neutral location, away from where the trouble is. And then exploring, what are the reasons for this situation? And if necessary, sometimes professional mediation can be really important. Sometimes people feel compromised in the sense that there's some sort of power imbalance or something else going on. And so you need to consider those facets of the interaction. And but in the end, then having done all of that, you may still find that you have to go through with the proper process. On the other matters, the notion of keeping a watching brief, looking out for scenarios is a good one. I wanted to also reflect on your comment from the earlier question about what are we doing to I guess, empower councillors, and particularly new councillors, and particularly councillors who may be in some scenario where they are in the minority. Because actually this is about the development of our capability as a total unit. And I've been involved in those sorts of processes in two major organisations, one a Crown Research Institute and one University of Waikato. And there are processes around mentoring, there are processes around making sure that people actually have the appropriate background for the issues that are in front of them. So I'm interested in how we build this, our capacity, do the job better. So again, I'm up for that. I think it's a really important part of the role. Casting vote, we've heard it all. A casting vote, I mean, essentially it's status quo. Sometimes we might be in a major time constraint if we're considering, you know, the passing of an LTP or something, and there might be a lot of pressure on it. But I take that same view that we've heard around the table today. It's really about, yeah, the status quo. It would have to be extremely exceptional before somebody did something different to that.
Thank you. Councillor Dillard.
Councillor Nicol. Well, I'm not one to look into Rear Vision Mirror. I'm one that wants to go forward. So, you know, I don't know what's happened. I'm new into the Waikato Regional Council, and I look around us and I think this is the team that we've got, and this is the team that's got to work together for the next 3 years. So I think the important thing is, you know, after today is get to know each other and, you know, different backgrounds, different views, and I don't believe there will be any conflict, you know, or standing orders or anything like that, you know, because, you know, from what I can see, you know, we've got 7 new councillors, or, you know, 8, one that's been, you know, done a term. I think all those new ones are keen to get in, to get experience off, you know, the ones that have got all that experience, and yeah, worked forward. I'm excited, you know, because it's, you know, we've got the 10-year plan that's within this, so that's, you know, it's exciting for me to get, you know, stuck into it. As the casting vote goes, again, you know, we didn't have any of that in local council, you know, and it's a bit of an eye-opener for regional council, and I'd like to think with robust discussion and stuff like that, as Stephen said yesterday, if it's 51 to 50, then you know, you go with that decision and you support it, because you can't win everything, and you don't hold any baggage. You carry on going forward and go to the next decision. I'd hate to see us, you know, spend 3 days discussing a very controversial topic, and then suddenly it lay dead because, you know, the decision hasn't been made. We're all here, and we're all put here by our ratepayers, our voters, and we're here to do a job, no matter how hard that is or how difficult it is, and it will be difficult, you know, and that's part of the challenge. You know, it's not just coming in here and, you know, just going yes, no, yes, no. It's hard debate, and there's going to be some hard debate, you know, with what new government could be coming in, or the same government policies coming down, mandates, inflation, cost of living, all those things that impact on people and their rates, and how they're going to survive. So, you know, it's every one of us have got a real important job that I'm sure none of us take lightly. And so I'm looking forward to working with the other 13 and our CE, Chris, to get us where we want to go.
Thank you both. Fantastic statements from both. Thank you very much for the.
Any other questions? Would any other councillors like to make a comment, either in support or? Nope. We're ready to move to a vote. All right. Division has been called for, so we'll go through the. Oh, is it Molly's turn? Are you the divider?
My turn.
Nice. All right. So we're going to, are you going to call the names, or, so this is in support of Councillor Clarkson as the deputy chair?
I will call the
Call
names.
the names, and it's either a for or against that.
Would you like me to do that right now?
Yes.
Okay. So, Councillor Clarkson, first up, can you please raise your hand if you would like to vote for Councillor Clarkson? Thank you. I've recorded the names as Councillor Kneebone, Smith, Strange, Mahuta, Hodge, Clarkson, and Nicol. That is 7.
Oh my gosh.
Moving on then to Councillor Downard. All those in favour for Councillor Downard, please raise your hand. Thank you. I have recorded the votes for Councillor Downard as Councillors Story, Hughes, Graf, Cookson, Downard, Mayor, and Dunbar Smith. That is 7.
Is it hat time again?
It's hat time
It's
again.
time for that.
Might have a rabbit in it. This
It's like the last time we undertook this process, we have pre-printed cards with elected members' names on them. And so I'll ask you, Councillor Downard, to check that name, fold it in half and pop it into the hat. Thank you. Councillor Clarkson, here's your name tag. Please fold it in half and pop it into the hat. Thank you. And so just to be clear, our chairperson will draw a name out of the hat, and whichever name is drawn becomes our deputy chair.
Councillor Clarkson. Right, does he do a declaration? We've got the lectern,
away with
there's a
the
mic, you know. Congratulations, Bruce. All right. Now. So I'm not sure what item this is on the agenda. Is it item 7? And Molly, will you be introducing this?
Earning your money today, Mary.
Sure, I can speak to this item, Madam Chair. Essentially, as outlined in your agenda, the business of the first meeting must also include an explanation of specific legislation that affects you, our elected members. Those pieces of legislation are identified here on the slide and in your report. The Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, Local Authorities Members Interest Act, Crimes Act, the Secret Commissions Act, and the Financial Markets Conduct Act. An explanation of all of these pieces of legislation is within your agenda, and so I would simply take it as read. I don't intend to go into the detail of what is already outlined in your agenda. And so I might just move through the next slides, Dave, right to the schedule of meetings, and we'll land on that one. Because one of the other things that we must do at this first meeting is fix the date and time of the first ordinary meeting of council or adopt a schedule of meetings for the year. And so in your agenda, we've listed all of the meetings that we currently have scheduled, or ordinary council meetings, that is, to the end of the year, with the addition of one date that is identified on the slide, Thursday, the 3rd of November. So that is next week at 10 o'clock here in the council chambers. Look, the reason why this date wasn't included in the report within your agenda is because we've only scheduled it in the last couple of days. But for completeness, we will add it to the schedule that we will adopt today and make sure it's reflected in our resolution or the council resolution. So those are the two key topics for this particular report. Thank you. Back
Great.
to you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions that councillors had?
I just ask a question. Should we not be receiving the report on those, the explanation? While it's been in the agenda.
I just need you to move a
Sorry.
bit closer to the,
Those 5 bits of legislation, they're in there by way of a report. Just wonder whether we shouldn't actually move the receipt of that report and note the contents, because it is a legislative requirement that we are, and if you've taken them as read, we need to acknowledge that they have been. I'm of the view.
so we can just add those words to that. Received and noted.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I'm happy to move that, Madam Chair.
By Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Mahuta. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right. So now we move on to item 8. This is the Local Government Pecuniary Interest Register Amendment Act 2022. Over to you again, Molly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last report on the agenda, I'll whiz through it really quickly. The purpose is to enable the appointment of a registrar as required under new legislation, the Local Government Pecuniary Interest Register Amendment Act. We've included a copy of the entire act in your agenda, and so I will take the report as read and just answer any questions you may have. Essentially, what we are recommending here is that to meet a new obligation as a result of this particular new legislation, you, council, must appoint a registrar to maintain a pecuniary interest registry, amongst other things, like making sure that you're well supported and understand your obligations under that act, and that we make the information that we collect in that respect publicly available. The recommendation in the report is that you appoint our chairperson, our chief executive as the registrar. And from what we understand, that is generally the practice that most, if not all, councils will adopt across the motu. This decision needs to be made by the 20th of November, and that's why we are bringing it to your attention today.
All right. Moved by Councillor Hughes. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Kneebone. Were there any questions before I put it? Nope. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Well, that's it, folks. Yes. Yes. So we will close with Karakia. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and diligence and participation in the inaugural meeting of the Waikato Regional Council for this triennium. Would you like to take us through the Karakia?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'll just invite any councillors who'd like to join in to also join in. Unahia, unahia. Unahia mai te uru tapunui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nako, te tinana, te hinenaro, ia ara takatu, koia rā e rongo, e whakarada, aki ki runga, kia tina, humie, huie, ai kie.
Thank you, everyone. We'll declare the meeting closed.
We've still got photos.